Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming a review and a tutorial with the Morphe x Jaclyn Hill palette. It is relaunching next week on Tuesday the 22nd and I figured it would be a good time to talk about the palette. Of course this look does look pretty natural and you can pass it off several ways, but the shade I used on my lid is absolutely stunning, which I will get to in the tutorial part of this section. But let's just go and jump into the review. So this is my beautiful Jaclyn Hill palette. I am not as much of a fan of the packaging as I feel like a lot of people are. I think it's pretty basic. I feel like it's actually kind of cheap. This is what the inside looks like. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're not unfamiliar with the palette. It was $38, which is $16 more or $15 more than the average Morphe palette. I have 4 other Morphe palettes, which I'm pretty happy with. I think the mattes are really good and I think the shimmers are pretty good. I don't think they're anything to really write home about. I wouldn't say they're Natasha Denona status, but it is a pretty run-of-the-mill palette. For 35 shades, I think $38 is pretty fair. I understand people are frustrated about the rise in price because it is a Jaclyn Hill palette and that some people think that she's just kind of looking for money, which I understand that point of view, but it's not something that I really wish to get into. I'm not upset spending $38 to $40 with tax and whatever on this palette. I ended up ordering up to $100 worth of stuff just so I could get the free shipping, and I was going to get brushes anyway, so I just kind of held off and waited for that purchase. I ordered it the day of the original launch, and I ordered it within minutes of it launching. Probably, I think if it launched at 10, I think it did. I ordered it at literally like 10:02. And since I live about 6 hours from Burbank, California, I got it within, I want to say 5 days of the launch. I feel like for less than $1 a shadow, I got a good quality palette. I think that some people were complaining about inconsistencies, which I didn't see. The only shade that I really find to be a dud is this blue shade, where when I swatch it on my finger, I mean, it looks pretty good, right? But it doesn't really translate that well onto the eye or onto the hand in a swatch. It's kind of sheer, which, I mean, that's okay because I understand that some people might want that blendability, but I really wanted it to be like a lid shade, and I don't know if I can get that opacity that I want with it. That is the only shade in the palette that I found that I actually have an issue with. The only other issue that I have with this palette is that there are shades that I feel like are doubled. I feel like there are places in this palette where there could have been other shades to create more diversity throughout this palette, but there's a lot of similar tones, which I understand. Jaclyn Hill likes her colorful pops of color, and she likes her warm mattes and a few shimmers. That's fine. That's her vision and that's what she wanted, and I think she executed it well. But in terms of like these 2 shades, which I understand she wanted 2 shades to go in the transition, but they're so similar that when you put them on the eye, they translate the exact same. Also, this shade directly below those 2 is really similar to the 2 above it as well, tone-wise. I think you could also get away with just having that 1 shade beneath the 2 and use that as a transition if you blend it out enough. Also, these 2 shades that I'm showing, I don't think they look as similar in the photo or in my camera as they do in person, but they're literally like a step away from each other, where again, they translate on the eyes very similarly. I could talk about a few other combinations like this shade and this shade, or even these 2 shades, or these 2 shades. There's just a lot of similar shades in this palette, which I think could have created room for other shades to create a much more diverse palette. I think if she omitted some of the shades that I talked about, she could have actually incorporated a lot more cool tones and created the most diverse palette possible. But I understand why her vision is the way it is. I know that she wanted to create a palette that she liked and was her everyday palette, and I think that she did that. Personally, I have been reaching for other palettes. The one thing I wanted to mention is like these 2 inner corner shades I think are great and they're really wonderful. I mean, I have them on my inner corner now, but she has one that's supposed to be cool tone and one that's supposed to be warm tone, so pink and a yellow, which I like. But if you're including mostly warm tone shades, it's almost pointless to include a cool toned inner corner highlight, you know? But I understand that some people might like to do a cool tone inner corner highlight with a warm tone look. That's fine. But again, for someone like me or the everyday user, I feel like she almost could have made it more foolproof for the consumer. I will say that this palette has been one of the most inspirational palettes for me, makeup-wise. Again, I'm sorry if you hear the collars shaking in the background. But this palette has inspired me a lot to do a lot of different makeup looks. I'm usually a very natural look. I mean, I'll just do one shade in the crease, one shade on the lid, and an inner corner, and I'm done, which is kind of similar to what I did today, which you'll see. But there's so many twists to this palette that I do love. I think that the pop of color in that corner that she did is really inspirational and really wonderful for people who are everyday but might have special occasions. And this might be the only palette that they have in their collection, and I think that if that was the case, that person would be completely fine. Of course, I have tons of palettes. I have a huge collection, and I think that this is wonderful for the everyday consumer. Again, back to the packaging, you can see that mine's a little bit dirty. I don't like on the back how it has the JH monogram on the back. I'm not a big fan of that. I think I would have liked to have seen shade names either on the back, or I would have liked to have seen this message on the front move to the back and have a mirror put in. I'm kind of surprised as a YouTuber that Jaclyn didn't include a mirror and that she didn't put the shade names on the front or on the palette. What I've seen is that the YouTubers that received this in PR received a card that was the size of the palette with the shade names on it. However, when you order this palette and you get it in the mail, it's only this big. It's probably about, 25% of the palette, and the shades are kind of hard to read. I know that's kind of being nitpicky, but still, I'm surprised that as a beauty YouTuber, she didn't choose to pay attention to that detail. I also think that maybe she couldn't have. I think that Morphe gave her a limited budget for the production of the palette, and she wanted to focus on the quality of the shades, which I totally get. I don't think that the everyday consumer, again, cares about the names on a palette. I don't think the everyday person maybe cares about a mirror because the everyday person isn't traveling every other weekend. But still, they would have been nice touches. And I think that if she included those nice touches, people wouldn't also complain about the hike in price. I think that the $15 hike is kind of extreme, and I think that's where people are coming from, where it's like, wow, somebody wanted money. But again, she talked about the improved formula, which there's also drama around. She talked about how they're pressed differently and each shade is individual, which I think that could be true, but I also feel like the shades are so similar where it's like, I really don't want to create a drama channel or anything, like that's not my intention, but I think it's important for somebody who is not only a smaller YouTuber, but can identify as an everyday consumer and be honest that there are things that would have been nice. I do want to say that even though I'm pointing out a lot of the cons and I'm trying to look at it from very different angles, this palette is 100% worth the price. If you purchased it on the 22nd, I don't think that you would regret it. I purchased this without qualms at all. I'm happy with the palette. It's something that I've used pretty regularly since I've gotten it. I wouldn't say it's an everyday thing, and I wouldn't say it's exactly a favorite, but I think that I appreciate having it in my collection. I think that the price is fair, still considering that you get 35 shades. I do truly think that the quality is on par with some of Urban Decay's shadows, MAC shadows even. I haven't tried Makeup Geek shadows, so I can't say that. But overall, I would honestly probably pay more for this palette than it's priced at. So, in conclusion, I think that the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette is definitely worth it. I think that if you purchase it, you're going to be happy with it. I think that if you pass over it, you probably won't mind passing over it because there are similarities to other palettes. But if you're a Jaclyn Hill supporter and you want to check out this palette, I definitely think that it's worth doing so. Now, with all that being said, let's just get into the tutorial. Alright, so everything on my face is complete besides my eye makeup and lipstick and whatever. That's it. I have primer on my eyelids. I'm using the Essence I Love Color eyeshadow primer. That's the one that I've been using lately. I'm going to go ahead and start with these two shades for the transition. And so because I kind of want to put a darker shade on my lid, I'm actually not going to go in with too dark of a crease color. I'm just going to go ahead and go with the two ones below the ones that I use in the transition and kind of just blend those together. And again, like most of my tutorials, I just go in with the transition a little bit higher, and then my crease color, I keep it a little bit lower. It's now dinner time for the dogs, so if they're yapping, they're eating, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna go in with this shade, and this one is getting absolutely no hype. I just want to say that this is the most beautiful shade, but it looks like nothing in the pan. It has a pretty neutral brown base, but it has multicolored like glitters throughout the shade, which usually I don't like glitter infused shadows, but this one's really beautiful. So I picked that up on both sides of the Morphe M166, and then I'm gonna wet it. I'm just gonna use my Mario Badescu spray, but doesn't matter. You can use a Fix Plus or even like a water. I'm gonna take that all over my lid. I'm gonna go ahead and take the same brush I used in my crease and just blend the edges. I'm sorry if any of my lighting goes throughout this video. I do film with natural light and it's kind of later in the day. Had a lot to do today and couldn't film until later. And it's okay to lay this shade down kind of sloppily because you are going to blend out the edges of the shade once you lay it down. When you get direct lighting on this lid shade, look how amazing that is. Oh. Jaclyn included two light shimmers in this palette. One is a little bit more cool tone and one's a little bit more warm toned. I'm going to go ahead and go in with the one that's more warm toned for this look and pop that in my inner corner. And then I'm going to go in with the same exact lid color and go on my lower lash line with that. What I like about this look is that it has the potential to be very natural. I mean, I'm going to throw on mascara and that's it. But you can also, if you wanted to do a liner, some lashes, and go clubbing, which I've never gone clubbing. But that glitter inside of this shade is so beautiful. And this shade is different. It's not like anything I've seen, which is something that I can't say about the entire palette. So I'm going to throw on some mascara and I'll be right back. Thank you guys so much for watching this review and tutorial. I hope that this tutorial was maybe something different from what you've seen. I wanted to highlight one of the most beautiful shades in that palette in my opinion and give you a look that can be very daytime to nighttime. It's very universal and would look good on many different people. Of course, my opinions are my opinions, and if you don't agree with them, that's okay. If you have any thoughts on the palette, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. Of course, if you like any beauty-related content, I am creating that Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And if you choose to subscribe, I will see you next time. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.